Hey everyone, it's Andrew. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a video doing an unboxing and review or long-term review of the Canon 1855 STM lens for the Canon cameras. I've been using this lens for all of my photography and YouTube content for almost about 4 years now. Currently the lens I have on the camera, my Canon 80D, is this lens. However, recently, or actually a while back, I actually dropped the camera and damaged the lens where part of the mount that attaches to the camera broke. And then a couple of days ago, as part of moving and stuff, I actually dropped it again. And it seems like the autofocus feature is no longer working. And so I have to constantly zoom in all the way in order to do it. If I zoom out, I'll show you what happens. It basically doesn't focus. And then so currently it's on manual focus, but if you set it to autofocus, the camera tries to like adjust, but it won't autofocus all the way, which is super frustrating, especially for YouTube content. So what I've had to do is just zoom all the way in, and then it can autofocus that way. But the zoom capability was no longer working, so I'd switch it from autofocus over to manual focus, and then stream content that way. But as somebody that does a lot of YouTube reviews, I didn't really have a good other lens. I've got a couple others that are longer focal length that just aren't really suitable for like closer distances. So I needed to get this replaced. So really what we'll do is we'll just take this out of the box. I'll show you kind of the general functionality. Then I'll swap it out with the current one just to show you kind of like how that works. But this is relatively standard, nothing too technical. But this is going to be the camera lens. So this is what it looks like. This is the Canon EF-S 1855 millimeter image stabilizer STM. It doesn't say STM though, so it should, from my understanding. But it comes with a lens cap, okay? And yeah, it says STM on the front there, so that's reassuring. And I went through Canon directly just because I didn't want to deal with like any issues as far as like refurbishment or renewal. But this is what the lens is. Basically it has a, this is how it attaches. You've got the white line that'll line up with your camera, and then you basically rotate it and it'll lock onto place. There's these two caps here. Whenever I store these, or actually the lens, not the lens cap, but somehow I store this and I can screw it onto whatever I have. But whenever you store the lens, always put a lens cap on the back unless it's strapped to the camera, so you don't damage this component. This is where it attaches as far as the electric components. And then as far as functionality, this twists, okay, to zoom in and out depending on your focal length. So it goes from 18 millimeter all the way to 55 millimeters. And then there's a fine manual adjustment for the focus here. On the side here they have autofocus and manual focus, so that's the component that broke, and then there's a stabilizer on and off depending on that. But those are the main features here. If you look, hopefully you can see through. So on this lens there's no black. I'll show you the issue with the current lens. But that's really it. I'm going to swap this out. I'll show you, kind of mess with it a little bit and show you the other ones. Okay, so this is the current lens I've had. It's virtually not really identical, but I always use a lens shield that prevents any like glares and sunlight or any lights getting in. Compared to the one I got, the angle here, or like the opening of the lens, is actually wider, so that's an interesting component. And then the other thing is like this extends out further on the actual thing, so I don't know if it's broken from that standpoint, but there was like a grittiness sensation and it doesn't kind of move as smoothly, and then the focus doesn't work as well, and then the autofocus here and manual focus, whenever I mess with it, it just wouldn't work as well. But the one I just purchased seems a little bit better quality build, less plasticky, so it's a little bit of better construction. And then what I'll show you is, if you look in here, that's the kind of issue. So somehow I dropped it, and I think those are the apertures when I looked into this that are kind of in like not coming backwards. So that's why the autofocus won't work. The other thing is sometimes the autofocus cable is broken. So I tried to take this apart, mess with it, but then virtually what I noticed was like I'd more likely break it by messing with it. There's a couple of YouTube videos and stuff where you can take off the front and try to mess with it, but I got a little bit into it and then I was like, let's not screw it up entirely because I could still use this for certain things if it's like focal points all the way down. But that's the issue there. And then the other thing is when I dropped it a while ago, if you see here, there's these grooves that attach to the camera, so one of these broke. And so what I was finding was with the tripod, sometimes when I would move the move the tripod, it like jostled the lens and the camera would think it needs to turn off, so it would naturally turn off on its own. So this lens I've had for 4 years. It's done all of my YouTube content to date, over I think like 440 videos, so it's great from that standpoint. Now what I'm going to do is just mess with this lens just so you can see the full extent of it when it really functions. So this is all the way as close as possible. That's all the way zoomed out. And then the autofocus basically works entirely now. So if I leave the focus off, it'll automatically adjust. So that's why I really like this for YouTube content, because on a tripod, I actually just recently reviewed this tripod as well. It allows you to go the full extent of whatever window you need for your video content, and it'll autofocus on its own. So it works really, really well with a tripod setup because you can go really close, zoom in, let it focus, and then work immediately. The other fixed point focal lenses aren't as great because it doesn't focus as quickly. So I think this is a great all-around lens for YouTube content or video production, at least kind of on a low budget sense. Or lower budget sense. The other thing I do want to say is that sometimes what I do notice is that if you're doing a video and say you come in and move something closer, sometimes it takes a little bit of time to focus. And so if you see like it's not auto-focusing immediately, the thing I found is what you have to do is just kind of fix in one position, let it adjust and do it that way. Or start a frame where you're at the right focal point and fixed like focus already. There are times though what happens is like if I'm standing in the foreground and I'm looking at something in the background, it'll focus on me and the background will be blurry. So that's one thing to keep in mind as well, as far as like when you're using this lens for YouTube at least, is that the focus just gets kind of off a little bit depending on where the point is. So with the Canon 80D at least you can focus on a specific frame in the window and do it that way. But that's all I had for this video. The reason why is because this was a moves broken and I have a lot of content to do, but definitely check out all the stuff with my camera, or like my channel. I highly recommend the Canon 1855 millimeter. It's great compared to other lenses. I definitely recommend the Canon 80D. I've been using it for years now and it works for all the functionality that I need. And then the tripod I use is the Zomei, Z-O-M-E-I. I recently replaced that in the 74-inch size. It's a little bit of a cheaper tripod, but it's the original one I've had. So I've got a good workflow with it, so I just replaced that. But thanks for watching and have a great day.